It's almost camp time for the Florida Gators. Who is stepping up at the offensive skill positions? We're going to talk about that here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. Happy Friday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. We're talking training camp today, but joining me for that is Brandon Carroll of AllGators and Carroll's Cadence, like he does every Friday. Joining me now for Locked On Gators, like he does every Friday, is Brandon Carroll from AllGators and Carroll's Cadence, his new YouTube channel. So make sure to check that out. A new episode does come out today, so don't miss that one. But Brandon, we're talking about training camp. Their fall camps right here. And Florida lost their leading pass catcher in Xzavier Henderson, at least in terms of receptions. Xzavier Henderson had 38. Starting X receiver, Justin Shorter, went to the Buffalo Bills this past offseason. Who were you looking at as potential replacements for them during fall camp? And I also, everybody that watches this show knows that for me, Caleb Douglas is like the guy that even last year, I was just like, I know we have Justin Shorter, but next year it's Caleb Douglas. But who are you looking forward to stepping up?
I agree with you. I do think it's Caleb Douglas, and I think that everyone around him thinks it's him. Because if just my time at SEC Media Days told me anything, is that not only does Ricky Pearsall think it's Caleb Douglas, but Jason Marshall Jr. thinks it's Caleb Douglas. Kingsley Eggleston thinks it's Caleb Douglas. And Billy Napier thinks it's Caleb Douglas because he's the most kind of, I don't want to say most talented, but he has the mixture of talent and experience that you need to come in and take on the role that Xzavier Henderson left behind. Caleb Douglas is their X receiver this year. He is going to hit the field week one and start at the X for Florida. And I think that he's made significant progression from his freshman year this offseason. I know, obviously, last year there were concerns about just him being able to catch the ball. There were drop concerns as he played quarterback in high school up until like late in his senior year. And really, even then, even when he did get out wide, he was still playing quarterback. Like he still had those reps there. So he's still new to the position, but he showed last year that he can be a strong asset for this Florida offense. And I think with, what they have right now, Caleb Douglas is the top guy to kind of complement Ricky Pearsall out of the slot. I think Douglas is going to kind of be that number one boundary wideout, and he's going to be the guy that they look to when they have to kind of make those possession plays. I think he's a possession receiver. I'm not sure if there's going to be much in terms of him kind of stretching the field and things like that, because I think they have other pieces to do that, but they can allow him to work in the short and intermediate, and I think he can be very valuable for them in that area.
Yeah, Caleb Douglas is just, I'm a huge fan. I'm not even going to pretend that it's like, I just think he's fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing him just grow and develop, but I could be mistaken here. But you were at the Florida Pro Day. Obviously, we were both at the Florida Pro Day. If I'm not mistaken, Caleb Douglas was out there running routes too, right?
Yes, he was.
Is that not a testament to like how good, like they at least, or how comfortable at least Anthony Richardson felt with him, that he's like, yeah, I'm throwing in front of these NFL scouts. We could have any of the people here, but I am also bringing you, even though we had 3 pass catchers available for it. Is that not just a testament to Caleb Douglas's at least confidence within the program early on?
Without a doubt. I mean, that's a, not only does that help him because he gets the time to showcase himself in front of, professional scouts and NFL brass, but it helps. Obviously, Anthony Richardson felt comfortable with them, and we know what Anthony Richardson can do. Obviously, he struggled last year at Florida at times, but he's talented, and the Colts know he's talented. That's why they picked him number 4. So now you're seeing that and you're saying, okay, well, maybe this Caleb Douglas guy can be something. And I think that he can. I think he's going to be something. and they're going to, he's in a position now where he has to be something for this Florida offense. So if they're kind of looking toward a guy to step up in this wide receiver room, Caleb Douglas is at the top of the list, and he is unrivaled at the top of the list going into 2023. And they have all the trust in him. They believe that he can kind of be able to run routes at an effective rate, kind of create separation at the top, and just catch the ball and make something happen in the yards after catch. So it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts to this new role. But he's going from a role last year where he gradually saw more and more playing time as the season went on. And now he's thrust into that. All right, you're our wide receiver one. Obviously, the Ricky Pearsall is their wide receiver one, but he's their wide receiver one on the outside for them this year, for Graham Mertz to kind of pick, and use as a weapon.
Yeah. There's also 3 new true freshmen on campus that everybody loves: Aiden Mizell, Eugene Wilson, and Eugene. What are your realistic expectations for them? Because I know I was telling you this off air. Like, I feel like we've gotten to a point where Florida Gators fans, just like, obviously not all of them, but Florida Gators fans on like Twitter and comments are just going nuts with like, they're all winning the Biletnikoff this year. Like, they're just going crazy with it, but obviously not exactly realistic. So what are you expecting from them?
Yeah, I think I want to start with Andy Jean. Obviously, I think he's garnered the most buzz surrounding himself, not only as a prospect, but he showed out in the spring. He showed that what Caleb Douglas is doing this year, I think he takes a faster track to being able to do. I think he finds his way into the rotation and into one of those starting spots before the year is over on the outside. I think he complements Douglas on the opposite side. I do think Marcus Burke will be in there as well. Obviously, there's been a lot of people waiting for him to step up into that role. I think this is the year for him to do that. And because of that, it's going to give Florida some luxury at the wide receiver position. But Gene is one of the most nuanced route runners I've seen in quite some time coming from the prep level. And I think that correlates directly to what Florida's offense wants to do this upcoming year, because if you can create separation, you're always going to have a spot on the field. And I think that the way he's able to push up field and kind of keep a vertical stem before making his breaks is going to be so valuable, so significant for just being able to put a quarterback in a position where they don't have to make a throw to a tight window, because he's able to create 3-4 yards of separation on whoever's in coverage on him. And, he's going to be able to kind of put himself in a position where the ball's coming and there's no one really there to make a play on it. And because of that, how can you not put him on the field? And I'm not saying it's going to be week 1, but I do think he gets snaps week 1. I think he even will get snaps, in the 20s, because they're thin at this position, but they got reinforcements on the way. They're coming. It's just maybe not coming as fast as Florida fans would like to see. But Gene is going to be a piece. He's going to be someone he's going to be a dude. All right. He's going to be a dude, but I do think we need to temper expectations in terms of how fast that can come. I do think it comes in 2023, but I wouldn't expect him going out there week 1 and putting up 120 yards on 12 catches or anything like that. So it'll be a learning curve for him for sure, but I do think the future is very, very bright there. And as do I for the other 2 freshmen. But I do think they're more eased into the program, similar to how Caleb Douglas was last year. Eugene Wilson, who is just a freak of nature. I think every time there is a new benching video, a new squatting video, obviously there are some questions on the squat depth, whatever. We can talk about that later. But he is different. And I think that he brings so much explosiveness to this offense. He can be that number 2 behind Ricky Pearsall, and that'll be very fun to watch. And that's what Florida needs on offense this year. They need someone that can kind of stretch the field and just make it to where you can have a deep threat and a short yardage threat that can take it 80 yards if you need to, whenever he gets the ball. So I think Gene and Wilson have the best opportunity to see the field. And I think Mizell is going to, but there's concerns just by his weight. Cause you saw Eugene Wilson, there were concerns about his weight, and then now he's up to 180. 5'10", 180. So he's in go for him. He's ready to rock. Aiden Mizell, sure, he's 6'2", but he's 167. Is that conducive for the SEC? That's a question mark. As a result, I think he's kind of the one left out of the that you see on the field a lot this season. But all three of them, in my opinion, are going to be year 2 at least contributors for Florida, if not later in the year in year 1.
Yeah, I have this hope of like Aiden Mizell playing a good deal this year, not even needing to get the ball, just run deep and make them, just threaten them. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even need you to catch it. Run like in long term. I'm just thinking of like Aiden Mizell can do anything that Xavier Henderson was able to do. Like in the long run, like fill
I
that
think he
Xavier
can.
Henderson role. Like
I think he can do it at a more effective level.
Yep.
I think he can do what they wanted Xavier Henderson to do, not necessarily what he could do, what they expected of him that he wasn't able to.
Yeah. He could fill that role, but not suck at it.
Yeah.
That's we'll just say that.
Hey, I will say I just as a not even as like a reporter, but just as a football fan in general, I'm excited to see Ricky Pearsall and Eugene Wilson getting screen passes and getting the bubble screens and things like that versus Xavier Henderson. Because we all know straight line speed, beautiful. The lateral movement, trying to kind of make people miss, a eyesore. So getting the people that are supposed to be in that role, that'll be at least fun to watch. It might not result to much, but those 5-yard gains that they can get, they're going to look special.
I will say, it was maybe the funniest thing on the planet when Xavier Henderson did make a man miss. Like I distinctly remember him catching one of those screens that he never should have been thrown in the first place, and like doing the slowest juke ever, and the defender just like whoop, and just like, to me, that's the funniest thing on the planet, because like I know he's not a very elusive guy, so watching him do that to me was just very funny. But enough. Have fun with Emory in Cincinnati. Best of luck to you
I think
guys.
there's a role for him to be successful at Cincinnati, and I'm not hating on him. I don't think that he was put in a position. I think they misinterpreted his skill set, and that ultimately resulted in him kind of just being meh at Florida.
These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free, with simple tools like screening questions that makes it easy for you to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. And LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. In the running back room now, Florida has, I'm not even going to put a number on it, but they have an elite running back duo. They have Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne. And I am going to ask you this because I've said this multiple times, and I feel like I'm the only person. Like, I feel like every time I say it, my listeners are just like they just hate me whenever I do it. Who do you think is the better overall running back on the roster, Montrell Johnson or Trevor Etienne?
I'm gonna break your heart.
That's fair.
And I know. I'm sorry. I know. Okay, first of all, I want to start by saying they're both very good. They're both great running backs. And as while we're on the topic, running backs do matter. As the NFL is learning very quickly that running backs are not very happy with their position right now. I think that they deserve more. And I think that it is an important position even in today's NFL. But that's a discussion for a different time. However, I think it's Trevor Etienne. And I think not only it's Trevor Etienne, just in terms of how he is, because obviously last year Montrell Johnson was the number one, and it was clear that he was the number one. He had production like he was the number one, and Etienne was that compliment back. And he did a lot of things well. I thought Montrell Johnson is probably the better in between the tackles, and I think that he can kind of be that tough runner up, just being able to work on the inside. But the way Etienne is able to run the football, how creative he is, how his vision and just his explosiveness, his elusiveness in the open field, it is there's not many that can replicate that in college football. And that might not necessarily be it might not sound like it's complete, but you have to remember that he was a freshman last year. He was learning on the fly. They threw him in week 1 and he had to figure things out. And he had to figure things out all throughout last year. And you saw him towards the end of the season, he would have those runs up the middle where he kind of busted it open for a 50-yard touchdown, 60-yard touchdown, whatever. And I think that as he grows in between the tackles, he's going to be special. And I'm not saying Montrell Johnson isn't, but I do think that what Etienne brings as just in all facets of the game makes him kind of just a slightly above Montrell Johnson. Now, I'm not saying he should be running back 1 because I still think Montrell Johnson brings the power, Etienne brings the elusiveness, and they can nearly split carries evenly, especially this year with them two being the top 2 from week 1, no Naquan Wright in the mix, etc. But with how Etienne runs the football, personally, it's not only a style that I like watching better and I prefer, but it's also a style that you can't take for granted, because when you have a guy like Etienne, it's not, you don't get them very often. I mean, no one expected him to be as productive as he was last year. And he's getting a year 2 with really in the same offense. Obviously, Montrell was already in a year within the offense. He came from Louisiana. So I just think that there's so much more that Etienne can put on tape this year that makes him, I should say, the more complete, dynamic, and better back by like a 0.02% margin, because they're both really good, like I said. So that's what I'm looking at for this running back room right now.
Yeah, I mean, I will say yes. I understand they are both very, very talented backs.
Very good.
For me, I'm just like, hey, I think Montrell Johnson between the tackles is more consistent, which yes. Trevor Etienne's obviously the bigger home run hitter. I feel like they're both solid at picking up these massive plays pretty consistently. And for me, a big thing, and I know this is the biggest nerd thing I could possibly ever care about, but it's what matters to me a lot, is just passing down ability. And for me, I think Montrell Johnson was okay as a pass protector, where I think last year Trevor Etienne really struggled there. And for me, like, one of the quickest ways to get off the field as a running back is to not be able to help in pass protection, which I will say in the spring game, Trevor Etienne completely upended Kamari Wilson in pass protection. So he's clearly made some strides there. And yeah, I think that they're both two of the top backs in the country, let alone just like, a top running back duo. I think they're both fantastic running backs. So
I agree.
Yeah. I will say Montrell, I think right now is better. Trevor obviously has just a higher ceiling just because of what he can physically do that Montrell can't with his speed and his creativity, where that's like stuff you can't really teach. So I understand it. But for me right now, it's still Montrell. But behind them, like you said, there's no Naquan Wright. There's no Lorenzo Lingard this year. It's Cam Carroll and Treyon Webb as the presumed likely 3 and 4. How do you feel about the depth there? Because we are one, knock on wood, injury away from being in a rough spot with one elite back and then depth.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with what the depth looks like right now, personally. I think Cam Carroll kind of produced, at least, I mean, obviously you don't want to talk about like, put too much stock in spring games. But he looked very good in the spring game. Like, and that's not something you can say about a lot of offensive players in that spring game at all, because they didn't. Offense did not look good, but he had a few runs where he looked like he could be a fine third back, a fine one. And it's not like he's going to come out and be, some, oh wow, they have the 3-headed monster in that backfield, but it'll be clearly the 1 and 2, and then he'll kind of perform in rotation. But that's exactly what Billy Napier wants. He wants him to take, he did it at Louisiana. He wants to play a third player just to put in, change of pace back, And one thing you're getting with Cam Carroll is you're getting that pass down style running back. I know they don't want to utilize their backs much in the passing game itself, but if they wanted to, Cam Carroll is probably that guy. He did that a lot at Tulane. And I think when he was working at his peak, that was his strength of his game. So if they want to get someone in there on third downs when it's third and 19, and they just want to get a little screen pass, see if they can pick up yards and potentially get in the field goal range, I think Cam Carroll's that guy. And because of that, I'm comfortable with what the depth looks like right now at that position. I'm comfortable with, if, forbid any player from getting injured, and because no one wants injuries. But if someone gets banged up for a week, I have full confidence that Cam Carroll can kind of take on one of those roles for Florida, because I think he's multifaceted, and I think that he can work and give them an extra dimension in the passing game. So it'll be interesting to see that there. And then Trayon Webb, obviously he's new, but he's going to get reps, and he's going to kind of play in that fourth role. I don't think we'll see him much, but when we do, I have no reservations to say that he can't be productive. I'm not worried in the slightest about what the running game is going to look like until I'm shown that the running game isn't going to be good, because I went back and watched a lot of games from Billy Napier during his time at Louisiana Lafayette, and that was never a concern that I had, was, they can't run the football. So if they have the ability to just put anyone back there that's somewhat talented, which Trayon's more than somewhat talented, they're going to be just fine at the running back position.
For a championship team, it's all about making sure that every player is the perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time that you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure that every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage, look for the green check to know the part will fit, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you go on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And we're going to end up with saving the best for last here, because my favorite position on offense is tight end. And so we're wrapping up with the tight ends, where last year tight ends were on the field a lot. You didn't notice them most of the time, but they were on the field a lot in this offense. Are you expecting an improved impact this year, or kind of more of the same?
Well, I think if they were fully healthy, I think that there's opportunity for them to be more impactful. Just because, and it's not necessarily because of the offense, but if you go back and watch Wisconsin last year, or really throughout Graham Mertz's career, he had a lot of success targeting the seams with tight ends. Yeah, he likes working over the middle. It makes him, you could tell that that's when he was most comfortable. If you want him to push it outside the numbers, that's when it gets a little bit shaky. But working over the middle, he was fine. He was good even. And then I know, wow, I someone complimented Graham Mertz. I go tell everybody. But as a result, I have a hard time believing that they won't try to do something similar for him in this Florida offense. Because at the end of the day, it's one thing to, kind of have a offense conducive to everybody, and it's a different thing to mold your offense around what you have. And I think that to be good, to be where they want to be in 2023, they are going to have to mold their offense around Graham Mertz. So if you put an Arlis Borningham out there, kind of let him work. Arlis Borningham, I'm huge on. I think he is so talented. I'm high on him from a skill set standpoint. I think he kind of proved a lot of people right this spring and put himself into a position to start even this upcoming year. And you put him out kind of as an inline tight end, let him work up the field, or even push him out to the slot, things like that. I think he can be a really dominant pass catcher, which is exactly what Florida needs. Obviously, there's going to be the tight ends are more than pass catchers in this offense. They have to be able to block. And that goes back to the the running game always being significantly talented and productive under Billy Napier coach teams. But I have no reason why I would look at this team, look at this offense, and say tight ends can't be effective. At least a handful, at least like one or two of them in the passing game specifically, because that's what makes Graham Mertz comfortable. And if that's making him comfortable, then in turn, that's making the Florida offense comfortable. That's pushing them further down the field, and that's putting them in position to score points, which could come at a premium in the upcoming year.
Yeah, I am curious just to get your take on Dante Zanders here, because I know from 2021 season with Dan Mullen, he was still defensive line edge rusher. Since then, he's lost 40 pounds. It was basically 20 each year. Are you expecting that to kind of maybe help him be more effective in the passing game? Just like maybe he's a little quicker, shiftier, and hopefully converted some like fat to muscle there, and so even more effective in the run game.
Yeah, I think that I don't necessarily think that he's going to be this. He's not going to be their pass catcher, tight end. He's not. He's not going to be their one that they look to. But if someone's in trouble and he's kind of out on a route, because they're going to still send him out just because he's going to earn the most snaps of any tight end this year. Because he did last year. Or I'm not sure if he earned the most snaps, but he started all throughout last year over Keon Zipper, which was a head scratcher at first, but then you saw how just how big he was, and they're like, oh, they just want him to block. Like, that makes a lot of sense. They want him to get down and kind of make his mark in the blocking game. And he had his ups and downs there. He's transitioning back from a defensive line spot after really just being pulled in every which direction under the Dan Mullen era regime, I should say. So the weight will probably help him in terms of making it look believable that he's going to go out and catch a pass. But I wouldn't put too much stock in him actually going out there and receiving, more than 5 balls this year. I think really they're going to look at Arlis Boardingham, and then you could see, a guy like Jonathan Odom when he's healthy, being that second piece in the passing game. Tony Livingston, a gray shirt freshman, could step up into that role. And then you also obviously have a guy like Hayden Hansen who could be that for them. But it'll be a tight end by committee for this unit this year. They don't really have a guy that stands out as the number one piece that I believe is going to kind of just be able to do everything. But Dante Zanders is going to be their leader as a blocker. Arlis Boardingham is going to be their leader as a tight end. And then they're going to work from there with the other pieces that they have at their disposal.
Yeah, Dante Zanders last season, 528 offensive snaps. Keon Zipper, 339.
Okay. That's what I thought. But I was just saying, I was just questioning. But Zipper was hurt for a good portion of the season, so that makes sense.
Yeah, Zanders was 13 games. Zipper was 8. So, yeah, and yes, more than half of Xander's snaps were run blocking. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to seeing this tight end room. I know, Arlis is someone who drives me nuts when Florida Gators fans want to do the Kyle Pitts thing, just because he's so different from Kyle. I'm like, yes, he's a pass catching tight end, but to me, not that he's obviously as good as this player, but I'm like, stylistically, he's more, I think, like Travis Kelce as opposed to Kyle Pitts. Like he's just not that kind of guy. So it drives me nuts when people do the Kyle Pitts thing. I get it. Florida pass catching tight end. Not exactly.
Hey, I hate to break it to you, but as probably for the rest of our lives, if a guy is able to catch the football and he is if he's 250 or below, Kyle Pitts is the comparison. Because
I will hate it for the rest of our lives. So
I'm just telling that is going to be what people are saying, and that's going to be what Florida's selling for the foreseeable future. Oh, you want to come play here? Yeah, we can make you like Kyle Pitts.
I don't blame him. I don't blame him, but it's going to drive me crazy.
Yeah, it's such an easy comparison and pitch just to kind of throw Kyle Pitts' name out there like he's not the highest drafted tight end of all time, performing in a way that really is just unreplicable because there's no one like Kyle Pitts.
He's still born. Still.
There's not a single soul out there that is like Kyle Pitts. Caleb Odom, people were saying was like Kyle Pitts before he committed to Alabama. He's probably a wide receiver. He's a wide receiver. And so it's just little things that could be sold, but they might not necessarily be true.
Yeah. I will also say before I let you go, I hate Marcus Mariota for making Kyle Pitts not look as good as he is. So I had nothing against Marcus Mariota before, but now I do nothing to do with Kyle Pitts being on my fantasy team either. Just saying that one. I every year I'm convinced this is the year that it's happening. Thank you so much, Brandon. This is Brandon Carroll with AllGators and Carroll's Cadence. Make sure to check out his new episode that dropped basically around the same time as this one. So yeah, but thank you so much, Brandon. We'll get you back next week.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me as always. And I know it won't be as, as clean and cut and insightful as what my other Brandon's got going on here, but definitely go check out Carroll's Cadence and support the channel, trying to grow this thing to be anything close to what Locked On Gators is here. So I appreciate everyone's support.
Yeah, and seriously, do go watch it, because I openly say I don't watch other Gator stuff. I watch Carroll's Cadence, so you should do it. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. We'll be back. We'll see if there's a commitment this weekend, but we'll be back Monday. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole 9 Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33, and I will see you all tomorrow.